All right, welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 4th of September, 2024, and this is the Cluster API Office Hours meeting. Cluster API is a subproject of Kubernetes SIGs, and as such, we follow their meeting guidelines, which basically boils down to please treat each other as you would expect to be treated, or explicitly so, please be kind to each other. And if you have a question, please raise your hand and I will call on you. At the beginning of our meetings, we like to give a chance for new attendees or new community members to introduce themselves. So I will be quiet, and if that sounds like something that you are interested in, please unmute or raise your hand and yeah, say hi to everybody.
Hey, I can go. Yeah, my name is Michael. I work at Mirantis. For the people that maybe know, we bought Docker Enterprise a couple of years ago. We have a new project that we're working with Cappy, and I'm doing product management there. So yeah, eager to learn what we're working on, and also eager how we actually can contribute back. Probably specifically first, what we're already doing, we have a Cappy provider, the Cosmotron provider that is already up and running, but we're going to work a lot more with other specifically providers or Cappy itself. So yeah, expect some more Mirantis people seeing, hopefully, in the GitHub issues and pull requests.
Awesome. Welcome to the community, Michael.
Thank you.
Excited to see some Mirantis friends again. It's been since the OpenStack days for me, at least.
Oh, nice.
All right. Would anyone else like to say hello to everyone? Okay, looks like things are slowing down, so we will move on to the next part, which is open proposal readout. So,
First name from Fabrizio.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I also have a topic in agenda for this one, so we can also move to agenda if you want. So, TLDR, I think that we are at the point where we can start a lazy consensus for this proposal. I think that for a couple of reasons, I think that the lazy consensus should be by end of next week. So first of all, I would like to thank you everyone that provided feedback. We had really a lot of feedback, awesome feedback. They really improved helped to improve the initial draft. But yeah, we don't have feedback since in the last 2-3 weeks. All depend if it have been addressed. And so in my opinion, the document is now in a really good shape. I pinged all the folks involved in the document to take a final look, but I invite also everyone in this meeting to take a final look. There is also another angle to this, is that this proposal imply a lot of work in this release cycle. It is great work. It will really improve usability of cluster API, overall usability, and it will be a great step towards V1 APIs. And if we want to get this done in this release cycle, we really need to get it started in order to finish the bulk of the job before KubeCon, because right after KubeCon we have code freeze, and so yeah. So time is running. I think the proposal is settled. I really like how it's shaped out, and I thank again folks. So yeah, please take another look or provide a LGTM. It is a huge step for cluster API.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for all the hard work on this one. And it's cool to see it come together in such a short span of time. Does anyone have questions or comments or maybe objections to the lazy consensus time? Or maybe everyone got all their comments out in the PR. So it seems like maybe we're in a really good shape for this. So I guess if there's no objections, we'll set a lazy consensus for the end of next week. And I don't know, Fabrizio, did you put a comment on the PR or something about the lazy consensus or?
Not yet, because yeah, it was in agenda to discuss.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Alrighty then. Well, I guess if there are no hands or anything, then we can move on to the next topic. All right, I'm not seeing any hands coming up. So the next topic was for me, talking about the Carpenter Provider Cluster API and some possible maintainership opportunities. So we are getting very close to migrating the Carpenter implementation for Cluster API into the Kubernetes SIGs organization. And right now, I'm kind of the only maintainer aside from the Cluster API core maintainers who are listed on the issue for that. And I guess I should have put a link in here to it. But since I know there were many people here who helped with the design and the architecture, I am, kind of reaching out to see if there are community members who might be interested in getting involved in the maintainership or even just becoming a reviewer there, because it would be nice to have a more healthy, more healthy community kind of support around the work that we're doing there. And just to kind of give a little background, I'm expecting that the next work we're going to do is probably a lot of experimentation and testing to see, how it behaves under stress and just does it react the way we want it to. So there might be some big changes coming. There's probably opportunity to experiment with the implementation that's there to see if we can, derive something that may be even better. So yeah, if you are interested in this and you're either here today or you're watching on a recording or something, feel free to reach out to me, Elmico on Slack or, in the Cluster API channel, or I think even in the Carpenter Dev channel. And I have a feeling that soon we're going to make a channel specifically for this project, but we'll discuss that maybe in the feature group later on today. So I don't know, did anybody have questions or comments or criticisms or objections? Yeah, Jack, please.
That's super fun. Great news, Mike. I am curious where you're landing the repo. Is it in SIG auto scaling, or is there anyone who's adopting this project?
Right. So right now, we are petitioning SIG Cluster Lifecycle to own it as the sponsoring group or the sponsoring SIG. And it will be migrated to the Kubernetes SIGs organization. And, I think there was some discussion around, who should own it and whatnot, but, a lot of the code that's in the actual project repo is Cluster API specific. It does, it vendors in the Carpenter core pieces. So the wider SIG auto scaling community, I think, is a little less interested in this specific implementation. So it made more sense to me to kind of petition Cluster Lifecycle to be the sponsoring project. And we talked about this a little bit at the SIG Cluster Lifecycle meeting. But I think it truly is kind of a Cluster API specific project. Although I'm sure as we go forward and start to run into issues and everything, we'll need some Carpenter core knowledge. But yeah, I think it makes the most sense to me to kind of have it under Cluster Lifecycle.
Cool.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for the question. And I, thank you to whoever's putting the links into the agenda. That definitely helps. Okay. Any other questions or comments or I guess offers to volunteer? Hint, hint. All right. I'm not seeing any hands going up, so we can move on to the next topic. Jack, I turn it over to you with machine pool graduation.
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to maybe Stefan answered the question in that link. Would you mind whoever's sharing screen kindly clicking through to that link that Stefan pasted? I just wanted to get out ahead of this machine pool graduation in 1.9. Well, we've got lots of time, so we can potentially talk about whether this is not feasible. I think there was casual discussion about this maybe landing in 1.8, but it wasn't prioritized by folks who are stakeholders here. So Stefan on August 1st listed like 40 things that we need to do for machine pool graduation. Great, let's go do it. So this, Stefan, if you're here, is this the essential set of pre-GA requirements?
I'll answer directly. Didn't find the hands up button, sorry.
That's okay.
So I wasn't framing this in any way in sense of this is all the stuff that has to be done or not. What I basically did is I just collected all the stuff that is open without
Okay,
any
that's
sort of
very useful. Thank you.
categorization, which of that has to happen or not. So I think the first step of the discussion is probably which of those have to happen, but I think there are definitely a few blockers in there because, yeah, I mean, there are some really fundamental things like, I don't know, does it work correctly with cluster class? Should the bootstrap config be optional or not? Because people apparently work around by having an empty data secret name. Can we do this this atomic upgrade? One very problematic one from my perspective. So just sharing my experience here. So basically, I mean, I'm a core copy maintainer. I'm never used machine pool in practice, but looking back the last half year, I'm almost the only one who's revving machine pool PRs. So for me, it looks like we don't have a maintainer for this feature. I do this like on a best effort basis, but I mean, you know, I can't be like the only one maintaining this, don't even know how it really works. And that only if I somehow find the time for it. That's not a good state for a feature.
Is there a checkbox that enumerates that thing you just said? Because there should be.
I think
lack of maintainers.
I definitely added a point there. I'm not sure if I made it a check mark or not, but I can make it one.
Okay, cool.
It's not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we're at the beginning of the 1.9 release cycle. We might be able to just aspire to address all of these. I mean, for something like graduation to GA, I'm not sure any of these things would want to be open, but we can go into. I'm happy to go into more detail after this. Fabrizio, you're raising your hand.
Yep. So two comments or two angles. So one angle for this is that probably it, as Stefan is saying, so the topic about maintainers should be considered. But I think that the real blocker for graduation is, or at least this is my reading of those issues. So machine pool is a really interesting abstraction, and in practice it has many different incantations. So there are managed machine pool with machine pool machine, etc., etc. So looking at the feedbacks, it seems that some of them are okay. Probably the one that drive the design with that originally drove the design, which was the one used by in Azure. This one probably is fine. I'm not sure the other one are fine, are measured at the same level. So these are at least my feeling. So I don't know, manage Kubernetes in AWS, they cannot rotate template. So do a clean upgrade. And this is an issue. So I think that probably the key point here is to getting a clean understanding or I don't know, manage machine pools in Oracle, if I remember well. They don't use Bootstrap secret at all. And this clash with the design that has been done in cluster class. So I think that the challenge here is to really make a point on all those incantation and understand if all of them are at the same status or level of maturity or at a graduation point. Because, you know, by just looking at the issue, I think that Stefan did a great work in, you know, in grouping them. And by looking at the first set of issues, it seems that some incantation on machine pool are still, not ready for graduating. But again, I'm also in the same position of Stefan. I'm not using them, and that's my biggest, let me say, limitation in this discussion. And the second angle that I want to bring up is that while this work, probably this question about maturity are critical, there are some work that eventually we can do. So I don't know if we want to move the APIs into the main API. Honestly, why not? They are already shipped all together. It is just code organization in our repository. If you want to move controllers out of the exp folder, it is just code organization. In my opinion, we can start this task. Is not crucial in the as the discussion before. But yeah, just
Yeah. So on that last point, I think that's very practical, but I think that we would need a bench of maintainers to be able to do that successfully. So I do think that it might be very, very difficult to sort of do this in the ideal way where we are able to capture all the various ways in the ecosystem that folks are using machine pools. And if we find that there's a wildly different sort of usage community, it's going to be hard to say, okay, well, your usage is not blessed, but your usage is blessed, so you have to convert over. I think that's hard in practice in terms of the conversation about stable APIs. So the easier option and the more practical is to simply say, these are being used everywhere. Let's stop calling it experimental. But we can't do that if we don't have maintainers, because one of the side effects of moving this to stable is that anything that touches this that might break from the user community is going to, if we're doing our jobs right in this community, then that would have to be taken seriously. And if there's no one to address that, no one to look into that, to triage, then so I think that that's the most important thing. So maybe that's the first thing we should do, is reach out across the ecosystem and see who we can find who wants to be a maintainer of machine pools. Is it as simple as populating an owner's file in the appropriate directories so that triage is made easier for, it'll be easy for like Stefan if he's doing PR triage, but if a user opens up an issue, it'd be nice if the user can easily discover, oh, this person is the owner for machine pools because it's in the owner's file.
That's a good question. So honestly, if you look at the requirement for being a reviewer or also for being contributor, they recently changed them to prove, to basically bring up the concept of consistently contributing or consistently reviewers. So what is happening today is there is an issue on machine pools. We ping the folks that we know have some expertise on it, but it's not ideal. If someone owns this, should be there.
100%.
Should be so. If you ask me, it is just enough. It is enough to add folks to a reviewer file. I think that the real honest answer is that this is just the first step. Then people have to do the actual work day by day.
100%, 100%. So it sounds like what I'm hearing you say really is that there's an opportunity in Cluster API for folks who have a stakeholdership and maintainer in machine pools to really become happy maintainers. And then in the maintainer community, I'm sure that Stefan, you will readily, that in the list of happy maintainers, some of the folks handle this stuff, some of the folks handle this stuff, and the maintainers can pass it off to each other. But the idea of being a machine pool maintainer is not really a thing. That's kind of what I'm hearing you say, Fabrizio.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it is okay to have a maintainer of a sub area of the project. It is also natural that people get into the project slowly, and they are expert in some area and instead of area. So, but what I'm saying is that it is not enough to add them to the reviewer list. They should actually review PR. They should actually look at issues, etc., etc. because, having
Yeah, no,
people
that makes
there,
perfect sense.
but then people do not follow incoming PR, do not follow incoming recommendation, and all the triage is still up to me, Stefan, and Christian. It is just not.
Yeah, no, that
and
makes perfect. The maintainer would be the one doing the triage. So if you're maintaining machine pools, it doesn't even mean that you have to fix the bugs. It means that you are the first to notice, and you might triage that to someone else as appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. So we need people actively working on it, and that's in the definition of the roles, even in the definition the reviewer and contributor roles. They are stressing that people should be continuously doing the work, not on demand or stuff like that, because
Right.
it doesn't work.
Can I say something?
Stefan.
So what I would probably do is we already have different owner aliases for subparts of cluster API. At the moment, we don't have one for machine pools. So I think we should have that. And I think what I would do is if people are volunteering to do that work, I think it's sort of okay maybe to already add them to reviewers. I definitely wouldn't just, immediately make someone maintainer, because usually it happens the other way around, right? You're contributing over time, then hey, that person knows what they do. You can trust them to just merge PRs, and then you make them approver, not just from day one.
Of course.
But yeah, I think basically something like reviewers could be okay. Just, if we know the people a bit and we know they're serious, just give them like a little bit of like advance here. Put them on the review list. Review doesn't make much difference from a permission perspective, but it already assigns them sort of, hey, you're supposed to own this thing. And already all the people who are looking for reviews or something, we have a place where you see who would be the ones that you ping for questions about machine pools, for PRs to review, and all of that stuff. So I think it's not a bad thing to already have some reviewers in there. And then, yeah, basically just contribute and take care of the feature. I mean, it was already not a good sign that basically the only one who could come up with a list of things we have to do for gradation was me, that somehow found the time after 3 or 4 months to actually do it, and nobody else did anything. So I think that just has to change. We need people who feel responsible for that feature, review PRs, answer issues, and maintain it. Yeah, that's the word basically here. Or just repeating what everyone else was saying before.
Lubomir, I think you were next.
I will start with a question. If the feature is graduated, does that invalidate the feature gate name in the feature gates flag? What I'm trying to say, is it no longer valid? Is it a breaking change if we graduate the feature?
That's a good question. I mean, I know that there's Kubernetes precedents for that behavior. It sounds like no one has really thought about that.
Kubernetes definitely breaks users
Yeah.
when feature graduate. I just wanted to check that, and I have comments about the overall maintainership situation as well. Does anybody have a response to my question?
I can probably answer. So we follow the same practice with Kubernetes. So graduation means basically the flag turns GA. Usually we keep the flag around for one release cycle, so people can have time to fix up automation that set the flags, and then the flags goes away.
Yep.
And the feature is on by default.
Yeah, this is how Kubernetes does it. Okay, thank you.
By the way, the feature is, I think that is already on by default, if I remember well. So let me say, we are just one step away, but we have to address a few problems.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a big proponent of graduating features, even if they are not maintained and they have bugs and etc. I think it's like really, for me, the indefinite alpha is a really bad practice all over the board. In terms of the status of lack of maintainers, I'm also guilty of not triaging. Sometimes I review this and that if I can understand what's going on in the PR. But I'm also +1 to engage stakeholders who basically work for a company that is currently using node pools. That's if these people have already contributed 1 or 2 PRs, you can engage them as reviewers, low key, we can say low key reviewer. Because this is an API, I will assume that they have to be an owner of files that also get a ping for other things. But you can, if when you're doing triage as a maintainer, you can just CC them, these people, and walk away. It's a machine pool PR. It's their responsibility to review. I'm a proponent of that, and I've seen it done in the kubelet actually. There are specific maintainers who for the CPU manager, for example, they participate in a wider owner file, but when a relevant PR is happening for the CPU manager, they get an explicit ping from whoever is doing the SIG node kubelet triage at the moment. So I'm +1 for such a process in CAPI, and I think it is going to overall facilitate the increasing load on a very small group of people, which I don't think is okay.
Joel, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so in the past, I believe we've kind of had conversation about APIs and graduating API groups in one kind of big lump. There was some conversation about moving machine pool into the core API group. And given the issues we know with it and the lack of maintainership that we're trying to build back up, I would not want machine pool to block us graduating or advancing other APIs that we feel are more stable. So are we happy to agree that we could graduate, say, cluster on its own, aside from the rest of the group, because we think that one's more stable? Or do we still want to stick to the whole group has to go in one go?
Well, we should define, I don't mean to butt in, but we should define there's 2 different types of graduation we're talking about here. So one, in terms of machine pool, it's graduating from experimental. In terms of cluster, it's graduating from beta to GA to V1, I assume you mean, right? So that.
Yeah, no, exactly. But my point here is that in the past, we've said that the whole core group has to go from V1 beta 1 to V1 beta 2 simultaneously. And if these are at different life cycle stages, and we know there's more work needed for machine pool, where some of this other stuff has been more stable for a long time, I don't want to hold back the more stable stuff because we're putting something in that's, yeah, more stable than it was in the past, but not as stable as the stuff that's currently there. Yes, they are different graduations, but they're related.
Go ahead, Stefan.
So there are some related issues that we have today, which is, for example, that machine pools is reusing the machine spec from machine deployment, which at this point I think I can say is not a great idea. So we are just adding to that problem. We also have some coupling between our different APIs by reusing structs, which is probably something that we should solve with beta 2 or something to just make a copy of that thing so that we don't have like 2 failure domains in machine pools anymore in the same CRD. Yeah, independent of that, my personal opinion is I think for the next beta, it's not a problem. I think we can just bump it the same way. I think the tricky part is the move to V1. And my personal opinion is I think it would, at this point at least, I think it would be better if we graduate incrementally and not the whole thing. Also gives us more time for subset of our CODs to actually, I mean, we have 4-man 3D cycles, right? I mean, it's challenging to put all our CODs in 4 months all to V1, even if they are already. So I think for V1, we should definitely, graduate incrementally, and there's probably like a core set of stuff like, I don't know, cluster, machine set, machine deployment. We have to look at the list, but there's definitely a bunch of stuff which is a lot more stable than a lot of other things. And we can make a difference there then.
Fabrizio, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I sort of agree. So I think that for the next step to V1 beta 2 is not a blocker. Personally, I hope that is just a matter of folks to regroup in this area of the code base. Folks goes away, change role, company changes priority, but this feature is used, so I'm really hopeful that we can get a good group of people that pick up the work again. And I agree, the moment where we really should raise the bar is V1, and let's keep iterating by small step before we get there.
Okay, that's fine by me. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to hold all of the rest of it back from a V1, but it seems like we're on board with that.
Stefan.
Yeah, maybe a slightly even more generic point. I think we definitely have to get to a pattern like core Kubernetes, where basically, I mean, I don't know if they actually follow that or not, but I think basically we have to be able to introduce and evolve CRDs independent of other CRDs. Because if you would say everything always has to be at the same point, I mean, it's one question about how do we graduate what we have today. But then the next question is, let's say we come up with some new thing that we want to have. Then you can either say, I put it in the core. I mean, if you would follow like everything has to be in the same version, you have one choice, which is, oh, we put it in the core API group and we make it V1 from the start. Or you have the choice with, oh, I have to come with like an awkward new group name because I cannot put it into the core group because it's not ready for V1. So I think we have to make that step in any case, that we are more flexible and that we can essentially use API versions to graduate features, and maybe probably also get away from using feature gates on top of API versions, just for features that are related to CRDs. I mean, for other features, it's fine to have feature gates, but maybe for CRDs, maybe the API version itself is enough. I mean, not now, of course, but just for new stuff and eventually.
Joel, please.
I don't think there's anything that stops us saying, hey, I'm going to have this new magic machine deployment type that's slightly different to machine deployment, and that's going to be a V1 Alpha 1 in the same group, right? Just because V1 Alpha 1 was used for some types before, it wasn't used for this kind, right? I don't think there's anything that says we can't do that. So yeah, I would not want us to put restrictions in and say, hey, this is a V1 group now. No, it's a kind-based thing, right? A V1 kind, sure. But the group can span many versions and even go back in time if there's a new type we have.
Yeah, and I think we already have busy data that we're doing that and it works, because if you look at our infrastructure.x cluster, whatever API group, all our info providers use the same API group. It sounds like after like, I don't know how many years of cluster API, the API server can deal with it. So it's not like there are maybe hidden bugs because nobody's doing that or some weird stuff like that. Apparently it seems to work.
We do it all the time across OpenShift. We've got APIs across various different groups, right? We keep introducing things as V1 Alpha 1 into one API group, and then we'll promote it up to V1 when we're ready. But we have the mixture over there. As long as it's not the same kind. Obviously, you've got to do the kind of the conversion methods and stuff, but like, yeah, not an issue for us to do
that. Good discussion. That was a real barn
Good
burner.
discussion. Yeah. Day-night doubleheader.
Yeah, totally. But the hand raising has slowed down. So
Thanks for taking all the amazing notes there, Mike. I just wanted one final remark to Lubomir's point about Stefan's point. So to Lubomir's point about pinging folks and then walking away, I think we're actually already there. We have enough people. I'm speaking from the CAPZ side. I know that we have enough stakeholders in CAPZ that care enough about machine pools that if Stefan or Fabrizio or Christian bugs one of us enough, we'll lean in and do some work. But I do think it's fair for Stefan to set the bar higher than that, given the place we are in, that machine pools are not yet graduated from experimental. So I think that that's an achievable and really valuable goal to say, let's ask more of the stakeholders for machine pool to more proactively maintain, watch the machine pool evolution, pay attention to CAPI on a day-to-day basis. I think that that's a totally fair requirement at this point. So I just want to +1 that. I think we should try to get there.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I think like having a group of people to kind of CC and point to quickly definitely helps create that kind of pressure that you're talking about there, or at least implying, Jack.
Yeah, I think that's where we are now. And so now we
Yeah.
just want to say, okay, let's play ball for real. Like it's prime
Right.
time. The
And
spotlight's on.
I think another big part of this that I just want to call out too is that, like, you know, the tremendous work that like Fabrizio and Christian and Stefan do as that first line of triage. It would be nice to be able to give them, you know, more, or anyone who's sitting in that triage position, like more capability to be able to kind of release the pressure and say, okay, I'm gonna CC this group of people to come take a look at this, so that it doesn't all have to fall on kind of the same people's shoulders all the time. And I'm, you know, I'm certainly an offender of this because my name is in some of those owner files as well, and I don't, you know, I probably don't do as much triaging as I could. So, you know, I'm definitely not trying to cast stones here, but more of I want to support, you know, the maintainers who are really putting a lot of effort into this, and recognize them as well. Okay, does anyone else have questions or comments about this topic? Yeah, I see Stefan saying in chat, you know, my problem is mostly PRs and issues coming from the community, and it feels bad to see these unanswered. And I agree with you, Stefan. I think it does feel bad to see those sit open. And I know we have a lot of issues on the repo and everything, and it's, you know, yeah, it's tough, but yeah, I guess this is open source development, right? Lubomir, please.
Just wanted to give another example from upstream Kubernetes. One of the special interest group implemented a method called public issue triage, which is basically a Zoom call. I know CAPI has become like almost like a Kubernetes within Kubernetes. Is a pretty big project. And basically, we already have a release team here. Maybe the next step is going to be the organization of an issue triage team. And this is, I don't think a lot of people enjoy doing this, but instead of having these core maintainers being the first line of triage, you could have a team of people who engage from the get-go on the creation of a ticket, which is issue or PR. These are the people that open the conversation. And maybe something that can be closed really fast, maybe they can start the discussion. And then this eases the burden on the core people. And this is actually already happening in Kubernetes, and I'm saying this is happening on a special interest group basis. It's not like a wider triage for every single ticket. It's basically the SIGs have this layer to facilitate the maintainer role. And I think this may be suitable for CAPI given the scale of the project.
Yeah, great point, Lubomir. I've seen that, you know, we in the SIG cloud provider world, we spend a portion of our meetings kind of triaging the open stuff as well. And we do it as a group. And I guess this kind of goes back to our famous, like, you know, chop wood, carry water kind of phrases and whatnot. This is the hard work that goes into these projects. Fabrizio, please, you got your hand up.
We are already there. So we have under EC tools, we have a triage party instance. You can run it with make triage party. Eventually, we can make it smarter enough to, you know, having queries specific for a sub area of the projects because we label all the issue. So I think that we are not that far away for this. In the past, we tried to do public triage meetings. It didn't really work well. Now, but yeah, happy to try this again. What I do is that every 2 weeks I run triage party, go through everything and try to keep the things going. Every 2 weeks is just a cadence that works for me. And I can manage sustain, but happy to do it. All the tooling is already there, query are there, documented. It works at least for me. So if people are interested, we can start from these. Any other approach can work as well. We can even create a GitHub dashboard if folks like it. So really open to whatever works for folks.
I didn't see triage party used so much in SIG. I think on SIG CLI was one of them. It originated from Minikube maintainers.
Yeah, it is just a way like another to find out what issue you have to look at, because they're just been recently updated or recently created. It just helps to find out the issue to look at instead of going through all the 200. And by the way, just to give, so we started doing this 3-4 months ago, probably more. I don't remember. I don't know if Stefan or Christian remember it. And there was, at the time, there was more than 300 issue in the repo. And slowly, we are now down to 200. So it really helped to nail down, to clean up the backlog.
Well,
There
but
is
this
still
is
work to be done.
this is basically like from my understanding, it's like a Zoom meeting where the three of you join together and do the work.
Sometimes we do together, sometimes we do alone. It depends by, the bandwidth that we have. But yeah, the mechanic is pretty simple. Make triage party, it open triage party. You have a well-defined set of filter that highlights you the issue to look at, or the issue that are stale, and then you can decide what to do.
I see. Related to my previous comment, the way a release team is now engaged in CAPI, is there any issue with having people on rotation that do triage even without triage party or a Zoom call? Basically, people who engage on any incoming tickets in the repository to at least tag the area and priority according to them, and maybe tag people that know about something. This is like more of an offline method with people on rotation. Do you think that people would have interest about something like that?
Stefan, please.
I'm just not sure how big that part of the work is compared to what happens after, or what has to happen afterwards, right? I mean, we're not like Kubernetes where we get like probably 100 issues per week and we need some first level routing to some other team. In the end, probably all of those issues will go to the same 4 people if the only thing that happens is someone setting a label there. So I wonder if the more helpful part would be not only putting free labels there, but also, looking into it, trying to answer questions and all of that stuff, which usually comes with that issue. I mean, we can do that initial routing, but it's usually more than just. I mean, or at least there's not much routing there because there are not that many different SIGs behind.
Yes,
That's my feeling. I mean, it's definitely, I mean, if people want to do it, there's no reason not to do it. But the large chunk of the work comes after, probably. After putting an area label on there.
Yes, it just the way I see it is the first line of triage, which is people just engaging. If it's a support ticket, maybe it can get closed without.
Oh yeah, that would definitely helpful. Sorry, that would be definitely helpful stuff if people are looking into, okay, what is this issue about, and doing some first level sort of trying to answer, and if they can still ask or something.
And I'm a big proponent of the fact that GitHub should not be for support in general. And actually, we apply this policy for Kubernetes, by the way. But yeah, I would say that I think it's not going to hurt. But if nobody wants to rotate and do this initial triage, it's a problem. Because you have to engage on every single thing. You probably still want to engage on every single thing anyway. But I also agree with you that in the end of the day, it boils down to the same few people that will do the heavy work. And that is a different issue. The issue there is that maintainers and code owners. That is the bigger problem, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the root cause of a few of our problems, that at the end of the day, probably 4 or 5 people are doing 80 or 90% of the maintainer work. And maintainer work, what I see that is basically, answering those more tough issues and reviewing all the PRs. Right. And if that doesn't change, now it might continue to work for a few more years. I don't know, but it doesn't feel like a healthy concept to me as someone who is doing a large part of that work.
Yeah, I agreed with you there, Stefan. I don't think it's healthy either. I get, yeah, and you know, we can sit here and kind of talk about like having, you know, separate meetings and all these other things, but yeah, at the end of the day, the problem is that we need to like connect with some people who are willing to put, you know, kind of some time in on a regular kind of recurring basis to help out with this, and whatever kind of length of time that looks like. I don't, you know, I don't know, but like it, we have many people here from different companies who are all kind of involved in this project, you know, professionally, because it is important to the work that we're all doing privately. And the question now is how do we figure out a way to kind of slice some more time off and get people who are willing to kind of participate, like I said, on a recurring basis. I'm sure that, you know, Joel and myself and some of our other team members who are here would probably like to talk about this internally to see if we can do something as well. At least that's my impulse. But yeah, we'll have to figure out some way to kind of be more regular about involvement.
It is certainly a manager discussion. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's obviously product risk involved, and this is something that usually people don't realize. If you stack the work on a small team of people that burn out, you propose a risk on your product, because if these people burn out and they leave the company, then you are left with a project, not a product, that maybe nobody from your team really understands. And there you go. It's a risk.
I mean, that's exactly it too. This project is you know, it's very feature rich and it can be complicated to newcomers. And, you know, the infrastructure that we've got set up for it works very well, but that is predicated on the contributions of the people who are being involved. And so, yeah, we need to kind of bring more people in who are not just the core people who are doing it now. I'm, you know, I realize we're running out of time and I'm just kind of blabbing at this point, but you know, this is something that's going to be a continual issue for us. And I guess we'll have to keep bringing it up and keep doing outreach until we can figure out how to get more people involved in that process. Did anyone else have comments on this? Looks like the only thing left is just the announcement of feature group updates. So we've got a little time if people have other thoughts on this. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up, so we'll move on. Oh, Fabrizio, please.
A very last one. So I just noticed that in the list of the proposal, we are missing the in place upgrade proposal that is out from Guglielmo. I think that it is a really nice read, and yeah, and great feature to have down the line. And so please take a look. I will add it to the document.
Okay, cool. I put a comment there up under the open proposals that we need to put the in place feature there. Okay, so the last thing I was going to say is everyone who's here, who's representing one of those like big companies that's using Cluster API, go back and have that manager discussion that that Lubomir was hinting at. Hopefully, we can shake free a little more time. So yeah, there's no provider updates this week, and the last thing is a feature group update. There will be a Carpenter feature group meeting today. I'm not sure how much longer we're going to keep the feature group going, but that's one of the discussions we're going to have because I think we've achieved our first milestone, and hopefully we can kind of talk about what's next and if we're going to continue that. So I hope to see some of you there. If nobody's got any final last minute ad hoc topics, then we will call this a meeting. Going in 3, 2, 1. All right. Thanks for coming out, everyone. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Mike and Richard.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.